Hello and welcome to today's tutorial. Today I will be going over how to make these little cat sushi pairs. Both of them are the same pattern. The only difference comes when we color change. But of course I will indicate when that happens in the video. This pattern is also no sew and there's nothing complicated. There's only one color change. And as for this filling, this is sewed on, so no need to worry too much about that. As for the tutorial, it is geared towards beginners, so I will be going over things pretty slowly. And now for something new that I'm trying out, for those of you who are more advanced in your crocheting adventures, I have made a written pattern of the sushi cat and pinned it down in the comments below. So for those of you who like to watch video tutorials as more of a reference than as a total guide, you can use the written pattern I provided below and then click in the timestamps where you want to go. For the yarn, you'll need black and white for the base of the cat. And as for the filling, you will need any color of yarn. Here I have yellow, green, and red. This is also a good time for you to gather any small balls of yarn you have laying around and use those. Now for the embroidery thread, if you're doing the black cat, you will need some white embroidery thread. And if you're crocheting the white cat, you will need black for the face. And if you decide to add some sesame seeds, you will also need brown. Some other things that we will need will be a crochet hook. I am using a 2.5mm crochet hook because it pairs nicely with the milk cotton yarn that I am using. Of course, if you're using a different kind of yarn, choose a crochet hook that matches well with that yarn. Next, we will need a tapestry needle. Then we will need some stitch markers, but if you don't have any, you could also use a piece of yarn, a pair of scissors, and then some polyfill. So we are going to start with a magic ring of 4 single crochets. So hold out your 2 fingers like this. Place the yarn tail on top. I'm going to hold it down with my thumb. And we're going to wrap it around our 2 fingers, like so, back around, and then cross in front. I'm going to wrap around in the back. We're going to have 2 parallel lines. And then I'm going to hold the yarn tail down with my thumb again, and also with my ring finger. So in the front, you should have a cross, and then in the back, there should be 2 parallel bars. So I'm going to put my hook under the first parallel bar and bring the second one back in front. So now I'm going to turn my hook, scoop up the yarn, and create a loop. And then I'm going to bring my hook under the second bar again, pull up a loop. So now we have 2 loops on our hook. I'm going to bring the first loop through the second loop. And then here we have secured our magic ring. Now we're going to put 4 single crochets into this magic ring and make sure you're crocheting around the loop and also the tail. So we're going to insert our hook into the ring like this, yarn over, pull it through the ring. So now we should have 2 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over again and pull through both of those loops. So here we have just created our first single crochet. Now we're going to do 3 more to complete this round. So again, it's into the loop. Make sure you're catching both the ring and also the tail. Yarn over, pull it through the loop, yarn over, and then pull through both loops on our hook. Again, into the magic ring, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over again, pull through both loops. One last time, into the ring, yarn over, pull it out of the ring, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. So now once we have 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to pull the tail to close the loop. Before moving on to round 2, we are going to slip stitch into the first stitch. So this is our first stitch right here, and we're going to insert our hook into that. It might be a little tight since it is our first stitch, but just slowly wiggle it in. Here we go. So now we have 1 loop in our hook and then also our stitch. Make sure you are going through both the front and back loops of that stitch. So now to do our slip stitch, yarn over, pull through both the stitch on our hook and also the loop. So here we have just completed the slip stitch. Now usually I like to pull it a little tight to tighten up the slip stitch. And then after that, we're going to yarn over again, pull through the loop on our hook, and that creates our chain 1 to start the next round. We can also pull our chain 1 a little tight. Moving on to round 2, we are going to put 3 single crochets into every stitch in the round. So our first stitch is going to be that stitch that we slip stitched into. So find our slip stitch, which is this one right here. So the one right next to it, which is this one, is our first stitch. So we're going to insert our hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull it through that stitch. So now we have 2 loops in our hook, yarn over, and then pull through both of those stitches. So here we have just completed our first single crochet, and then you can also mark it with your stitch marker. Now we're going to put 2 more single crochets into that same stitch. So here's our first single crochet we made. Then we can pull it out a little and you see where that hole is. That is our first stitch. So we're going to insert it in there again. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. So that makes our second single crochet into the first stitch. And we're going to do that one more time to complete it. So pull it out a little bit, notice where the hole is, insert our hook, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. Now we have just made 3 single crochets. I'm going to repeat that with the rest of the stitches in our round. So we have located the second stitch right here, insert our hook, and then we're going to put 3 single crochets into the stitch. So yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over again, pull through both loops. Here is our first single crochet. Now our second one, and then the last one in this stitch. At this point, we should have a total of 6 single crochets. Now we're just going to repeat that same thing, 3 single crochets into 1 stitch for these last 2 stitches right here. At the end of the round, we should have a total of 12 single crochets. And it might look like we have 1 leftover stitch in this round, but that is actually our slip stitch from the previous round. And then the stitch right above that slip stitch, which is this one right here, it is actually our chain 1. So this right here, where our stitch marker is the first stitch. So don't get confused with the slip stitch and the chain 1. To end round 2, we are going to slip stitch into our first stitch, which is marked by this stitch marker right here. So I'm going to remove that, insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through both the stitch and the loop on our hook, pull tight, and then beginning round 3, chain 1, pull it tight. Now for round 3, the pattern says that we are going to start with 1 single crochet. So again, our first stitch is the stitch that we slip stitched into. So it might be a little hard to see here, but that tiny little stitch here is our first stitch. So we're going to insert our hook into that spot, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both of the loops to complete the single crochet. I'm going to mark that first stitch. And then into the next stitch, we're going to do that 3 single crochet into 1 stitch again. So my second stitch is this one right here. Insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. I'm going to do that 2 more times into that same stitch. Now into the next 2 stitches, we're going to single crochet 1. So here's the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and then the following stitch, another single crochet. So now we're going to repeat that pattern of 3 single crochets into 1 stitch, followed by 2 single crochets, another 2 more times. We could do it all together 1 more time. So this next stitch is going to have 3 single crochets into it. Zip my hook, our first single crochet, second, and then the last final third one. And then follow that with 2 single crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. So here is 1, and then I'm going to go into the next stitch, and then that's the second one. And we're going to repeat that 1 more time. So 3 single crochets into this stitch, and then 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. And then we're going to do 1 more triplet of single crochets into the next stitch. So 1, 2, and 3. And then our last stitch will just be 1 single crochet. So now at the end of round 3, we should have a total of 20 stitches, and it's already starting to look like a square. Now I'm going to end with a join into that first stitch. So remove the stitch marker, insert our hook, and then make a slip stitch. For round 4, start with that chain 1, and then we are going to do 2 single crochets. So into our first stitch, which is that stitch that we slip stitch into, the little tiny one here, we're going to do 1 single crochet. And then in the following stitch, another single crochet. So those are 2 single crochets to begin the round. Next, we're going to do 3 single crochets into the next stitch, just like we've done in the previous rounds. So here is my first single crochet, second one into the same stitch, and then our final third one into the same stitch again. Now we're going to follow that with 4 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I'm going to repeat that pattern again. 3 single crochets into 1 stitch, followed by 4 single crochets. Here is my 1, 2, and then 3 single crochets in the same stitch. I'm going to follow that with 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Now we're going to repeat that pattern 1 more time. 3 single crochets into the same stitch, and then follow it with 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Into the next stitch is another 3 single crochets into 1 stitch. 1, 2, and then our third single crochet into that same stitch. And then to finish off this round, we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 into each of these last 2 stitches. 1, and then our last single crochet. At the end of this round, we should have a total of 28 stitches. It seems like I forgot to put my stitch marker into the first stitch of the round, but you can easily tell which stitch is the first stitch by first locating where our slip stitch is and the chain 1. So the slip stitch would be this horizontal line right here. Then right above it is a little mini stitch, which is our chain 1. So that makes this stitch up here our first stitch. So if you ever forget to put your stitch marker into the first stitch, you can locate it easily by doing this little trick. Slip stitch, chain 1, and then first stitch. I'll just put it here so it's easy for everyone to see what my first stitch is. So at this point of the project, there's going to be a slight divergence in the pattern depending on whether you're crocheting the white cat or the black cat. So for those of you crocheting the black cat, continue on to round 5. You can skip ahead a little bit. And for the white cat people, you can stay put. We're going to start fastening off. So in order to fasten off, I'm going to pull my loop out a little bit, remove my hook, and then we're going to cut a small tail. And then we're going to pull our loop out. And then now grab your tapestry needle, thread the yarn tail through, and then we're going to create an invisible fasten off. So in order to do so, we're going to insert our hook into the second stitch of the round. So here is my first stitch where the stitch marker is, making this my second stitch. So we're going to insert it through the front of the stitch all the way through. I'm also going to remove my stitch marker now since I don't need it. I'm going to pull the yarn through. And now we're going to insert our hook back into the stitch where our yarn is coming out of. So here is our yarn and it is coming out of the stitch right here. So we're going to insert it through the middle and then come back out the back loop of the stitch. So we're going to go like this. And then as you can see, that creates the little V of our stitch. I want to pull it tight to make it the same size as all the other stitches. And then there is our invisible fasten off. So now we are going to switch on to our second color. And then we're going to first start with a slip knot. So to create a slip knot, we are going to first start off like we did with a magic ring. Hold that tail down, wrap it out around our fingers, and then cross over, and then hold that working yarn down with our thumb. So here we have one loop, and that's all we need. And I'm going to remove that loop, still holding it down with our thumb. Then I'm going to pull a loop through the loop that we made. So pull it through. And then here is our slip knot. All we're going to do is pull it tight, this tail, and then to shrink the size of our loop, first I'll put it on my hook, grab the working tail and pull it, and I'll tighten the loop on our hook. To start crocheting in this new color, first locate where that invisible fasten off is. So I'm just going to find the tail, pull it a little tight, and I see right here, this is where my fake stitch is. So I want to start crocheting into that fake stitch. So we're going to insert our hook through the front of the stitch. So now you have one loop in your new color and then the stitch in the first color that we were crocheting in. So now to complete our single crochet, we're going to yarn over in the new color, pull it through the stitch, I want to yarn over again, pull through both of the loops on our hook. And that creates our first single crochet in our new color. So this is going to be our only color change, and we're going to stick with this color till the end of the project. So now I'm going to switch back to my original color and show everybody how to crochet round 5. For my black cat people, we are going to finish off round 4 like we did with all the previous rounds. Slip stitch into that first stitch. This one right here, slip stitch into this stitch. And then we're going to chain 1 to start round 5. Now my white cat people have already finished their first single crochet of this round, so we're going to catch up and we're going to insert our hook into the same stitch we slip stitch into. So our first stitch here, and then do that first single crochet. Now to complete the first segment of round 5, we're going to complete 2 more single crochets to finish off that 3 single crochet in the beginning. So here's our first single crochet right here. Then we're going to do our second, and then our third one. So now that everyone's caught up together, we can all crochet the same thing. So next we are going to do that 3 single crochet into 1 stitch. So into the next stitch, put 3 single crochets into that same stitch. Then we're going to follow that with 6 single crochets. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. And now again, 3 single crochets into the next stitch. So 1, and then back into the same stitch, 2, and now our final single crochet, 3. Again, another 6 single crochets. Into the next stitch, another 3 single crochet set. 1, 2, 3, and then our last group of 6 single crochets. Next, our last set of our 3 single crochet group. 1, 2, and then 3. And then to finish off this round, 3 single crochets. At the end of round 5, we should have a total of 36 stitches. So now at this point, the black cat people, you're going to fasten off and switch to your second color. And as for the white cat people, you can skip ahead to round 6. For the black cat people, I'm going to replay the clip of me fastening off and switching to a new color that I did previously for the white cat people, so you can watch that clip and follow along. So in order to fasten off, I'm going to pull my loop out a little bit, remove my hook, and then we're going to cut a small tail, and then we're going to pull our loop out. And then now grab your tapestry needle, thread the yarn tail through, and then we're going to create an invisible fasten off. So in order to do so, we're going to insert our hook into the second stitch of the round. So here is my first stitch where the stitch marker is, making this my second stitch. So we're going to insert it through the front of the stitch all the way through. I'm also going to remove my stitch marker now since I don't need it. I'm going to pull the yarn through. And now we're going to insert our hook back into the stitch where our yarn is coming out of. So here is our yarn and it is coming out of this stitch right here. So we're going to insert it through the middle and then come back out the back loop of the stitch. So we're going to go like this. And then as you can see, that creates the little V of our stitch. I'm going to pull it tight to make it the same size as all the other stitches. And then there is our invisible fasten off. So now we are going to switch on to our second color. And then we're going to first start with a slip knot. So to create a slip knot, we are going to first start off like we did with a magic ring. Hold that tail down, wrap it out around our fingers, and then cross over, and then hold that working yarn down with our thumb. So here we have 1 loop, and that's all we need. And I'm going to remove that loop, still holding it down with our thumb. Then I'm going to pull a loop through the loop that we made. So pull it through. And then here is our slip knot. All we're going to do is pull it tight, this tail, and then to shrink the size of our loop, first I'll put it on my hook, grab the working tail and pull it, and I'll tighten the loop on our hook. To start crocheting in this new color, first locate where that invisible fasten off is. So I'm just going to find the tail, pull it a little tight, and I see right here this is where my fake stitch is. So we're going to start crocheting into that fake stitch. So we're going to insert our hook through the front of the stitch. So now you have one loop in your new color and then the stitch in the first color that we were crocheting in. So now to complete our single crochet, we are going to yarn over in the new color, pull it through the stitch, I'm going to yarn over again, pull through both of the loops on our hook. And that creates our first single crochet in our new color. So this is going to be our only color change, and we're going to stick with this color till the end of the project. So now I'm going to switch back to my original color and show everybody how to crochet round 6. Okay, so now to end round 5, just for my white cat people, at least just for this small beginning part, we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch and join the round like we did in all our previous rounds. So yarn over and then go through both the stitch and the loop on our hook. And then now we're going to chain 1 to begin round 6. So for my black cat people, we have already done the first single crochet. So to catch up, white cat people, we are going to single crochet into our first stitch. So here's our first single crochet. And then now everybody together, we're going to do 3 single crochets to finish off that beginning part of round 6. So here is 1, 2, and then 3. Now into the next stitch, that single crochet triplet. So we're going to do 3 single crochets into the next stitch. 1, 2, and then 3. Now following that, we're going to do 8 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So now we're going to repeat that pattern 2 more times, 3 single crochet into 1 stitch, followed by 8 single crochets. So here is the 3 single crochets. And then 8 more single crochets into the following 8 stitches. We're going to do that pattern 1 more time. 3 single crochets. And then follow that with 8 more single crochets. Our last single crochet triplet into the next stitch. And then finish off the round with 4 single crochets. Now slip stitch to join into that first stitch. And then chain 1. So now we're going to start embroidering on the filling of our sushi cat. There are a few things that I would like to mention. First being that you want to keep within the bounds of round 3. So as you can see in this black one here, what's showing here is the round 4. So I'm covering everything between round 1 and round 3. Also, when you're embroidering, make sure for each section you're keeping the same orientation. So for example, if I'm starting off with stitching horizontally, make sure all your stitches remain horizontal. Even if you're doing slight diagonals, make sure they're in a horizontal way and not just a random vertical diagonal or a random vertical stitch. And the same thing goes with this vertical space here. All my stitches are going vertical. Even if some of them are slight diagonals, they're still in a vertical position. And the last thing that I want to note is that when you're deciding how you're splitting up your sections, make sure that you are splitting them up in a way that doesn't require you to stitch through the magic ring. So for example, here is my magic ring. You probably don't want to split your filling like so, because that would require you to go through this magic ring. So like we see right here, this section here is covering my magic ring while these other two don't include it. So when you're deciding how you're splitting up your filling, just remember that one of your fillings is going to completely overlap the magic ring and that all your other filling parts will not include the magic ring. Once we have finished filling in the embroidery, we can now move on to round 7. Starting round 7, we are going to single crochet 1 into every stitch in the round for a total of 44 single crochets. However, instead of crocheting through both the front and back loops like we normally would, we're going to only crochet through the back loops only just for round 7. So for example, normally we would insert our stitch into that first stitch, catching that whole V, the front and back loop, and then single crochet. But for this round, we're only going to go through this back loop right here. So we want to insert our hook in the middle, wiggle it a little bit. It might be tight since this is our first stitch of the round and our slip stitch is also in this stitch. So here, once I got that back loop, I'm just going to crochet like normal. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over again, pull through both loops, and here's our first single crochet. Again, I'll show you one more time because I think the second stitch is a little more clear since it is a bit bigger. We're going to insert our hook into the middle, push through to the back of the stitch, catching only that back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on our hook. And then there is our second single crochet. One more time, a little faster. Into the middle of the stitch, push out through the back, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. So now we're just going to repeat that same thing in every stitch in this round, and we should have a total of 44 stitches at the end of this round. Once you have reached the end of the round, we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. And then chain 1. So here's what it looks like after completing round 7. You can see there is a little border here from all the front loops that we didn't crochet into, since we only crocheted into the back loops only for round 7. For round 8, we are also going to single crochet 1 into every stitch in the round for a total of 44 single crochets, but unlike round 7, we are going to crochet both through the front and back loops like we normally would. We're going to start into that first stitch, the one that we slip stitched into. We're going to insert our hook into there, single crochet 1, and then continue on crocheting the same way throughout this whole round. Once you have reached the end of round 8, we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. And then chain 1 to begin round 9. So now for the following rounds, round 9 through round 11, we are going to do the same exact thing that we did in round 8. Single crochet 1 into every stitch in the round for a total of 44 single crochets, and then make sure you are joining at the end of every round with a slip stitch into the first stitch and then chain 1 to begin the next round. So after you finish round 11, we can all come back together and crochet round 12. Welcome back to round 12. We only have a few more rounds to go. We're almost done. To start, we are going to do 3 single crochets. I already did my chain 1, so I'm just going to move on to the single crocheting. So we're going to start into that first stitch. Here's our first single crochet. Into the next stitch, our second single crochet, and then the third one. Now we're going to do a bobble stitch, and in order to do a bobble stitch, we're going to first yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and now we should have 3 loops on our hook. I'm going to yarn over again, and then pull through the first 2 loops, bringing us to 2 loops on our hook. We're going to repeat this 3 more times. So again, yarn over, insert our hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop. Now we have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. Now we will have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to repeat this 2 more times. Yarn over, insert our hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. Now one last time, yarn over, insert our hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. And that will bring us to 5 loops on our hook. To finish off this bobble stitch, yarn over and pull that first loop through all of the loops on our hook. And that completes our bobble stitch. Next, we're going to do 14 single crochets. So we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. I'm going to pull our loop up high so that we can push our previous bobble stitch out. So once we pushed it forward, we can tighten that first loop on our hook, yarn over, and complete our single crochet. To finish this segment of the round, do 13 more single crochets. Into the next stitch, we are going to do another bobble stitch. So we're going to do it together. First, yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So we're going to do that 3 more times. Yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, 4 loops on our hook now, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. 2 more times now, yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over, and then pull through 2 loops. One last time, yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Yarn over 1 more time and pull through all 5 loops. And here is our second bobble stitch. Next, we're going to do 6 single crochets, and just like previously, we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull it up high, and then push our bobble stitch that we just made forward. Then we can tighten that first loop by pulling the working yarn, yarn over, and then complete the single crochet. Now finish it up and do 5 more single crochets. Next, another bobble stitch. I'll go through it a little faster now. So yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now for our second time, yarn over, into the stitch, and then yarn over and pull through 2. For the third one, again, yarn over to the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Last one, yarn over, into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Then yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook to finish it off. Next, we're going to do 14 single crochets into the next stitch, pull up a big loop, push our bobble stitch forward, tighten that loop, and then complete our single crochet. Now 13 more. Now on to our last bobble stitch. Yarn over into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now 2 more times, yarn over into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And the last final time, yarn over into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And then to finish it off, one last yarn over and then pull through all of the loops on the hook. Into our final 3 stitches, single crochet 1. So just like previously, into the next stitch, pull up a big loop, push that bobble stitch forward, then yarn over, and then complete the single crochet. And then single crochet 1 into the last 2 stitches. Join into the first stitch with that slip stitch. And then chain 1 to now start round 13. For round 13, we are going to crochet into the back loops only, just like we did in round 7. So to begin, we're going to start with 4 single crochets. So insert your hook into the middle of that first stitch. Again, it might be a little tight because of the slip stitches, but once you get it in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 to complete that first single crochet. Now we have 3 more single crochets to go. So again, into the middle of the stitch, push through the back, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. In through the middle, out through the back, and then single crochet. Now our last stitch is going to be on top of this bobble stitch, but it's the same thing as the previous stitches. Go in the middle of the stitch and then push back out, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. After that 4th single crochet, we are now going to do a 3 stitch decrease. So in order to do so, we're gonna insert our hook through the middle of the stitch to get the back loop only, yarn over, pull up a loop. And we're gonna do the same thing with the following 2 stitches. So into the middle, back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, then into the next stitch, grab that back loop, yarn over, and then pull up a loop. So now we should have 4 loops on our hook. We're gonna yarn over 1 more time and pull through all 4 loops on our hook. Now we're gonna follow that with 8 single crochets. Again, all into the back loops only. After that 8th single crochet, we're gonna repeat that pattern of 3 single crochets stitched together, followed by 8 single crochets. So we're gonna crochet that 3 stitch decrease again. So into the middle, pull up a loop, and then into the next stitch, through the middle, pull up a loop, and then into the final 3rd stitch, pull up a loop, and then now 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, and then pull through all 4. Again, 8 more single crochets. Now it's time again for another 3 stitch decrease. So into the next stitch, pull up a loop, into the 2nd stitch, pull up another loop, and then into the 3rd stitch, our final loop, making 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, and then pull through all 4. Another 8 more single crochets. Now we're on to our final 3-stitch decrease. So one last time, into the middle of the stitch, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, pull up another loop, and in the final 3rd stitch, pull up that final loop, making 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. Now into the remaining last 4 stitches, single crochet 1. Remember, back loop only. At the end of the round, slip stitch to join. And then chain 1. This is what it looks like after round 13. You can see that border we have here from crocheting only in the back loops. It's the same thing as round 7. Now we can move on to round 14. First, we're going to do 3 single crochets, and instead of crocheting into the back loop only like we did in round 13, we're crocheting like normal into both the front and back loops. Make sure you're crocheting into that first stitch, the one that we slip stitched into. Here is 1, 2, and then 3. Next, we're going to do a 3-stitch decrease, and instead of like the one we did in round 13, we're going to do an invisible 3-stitch decrease. So in order to do that, we're going to first insert our hook into the front of the stitch, and then we're going to go out through the middle so that we only capture the front loop. We're going to do that again with the next 2 stitches. So that's in through the front, and then out through the middle of the stitch, capturing only that front loop. Again, into the front of the stitch, and then out through the middle. So now we have a total of 4 loops on our hook. So we're going to yarn over, then pull through the first 3 loops. Then we're going to yarn over and then pull through the next 2 loops. And here we have just finished our invisible 3-stitch decrease. Now we're going to follow this decrease with 6 single crochets and make sure you're starting into the next available stitch. So as you can see here, this is our decrease, and it stretches all the way up until this point where we see the stretch of that front loop. The next available stitch will be this one where there is no connection to this decrease. So we're going to insert our hook into that stitch and then single crochet 1. And now we're going to complete 5 more single crochets to complete this section of the pattern. Now we're going to repeat this pattern of a 3-stitch decrease followed by 6 single crochets another 2 more times. So we can do that decrease again together. So into the front of the loop, out through the middle, capture that front loop. Again, into the next stitch's front loop, out through the middle, and then the last 3rd stitch in the front, out the middle. 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, go through the first 3, yarn over again, and then go through the last 2 here. So that completes our decrease. Next, we're going to do another 6 single crochets. Remember not to go into this stitch right here, but the next available stitch. So this is the next available stitch. Another 3-stitch decrease, a little faster now. In the front, out the middle, in the front, out the middle again, and then lastly in the front, out the middle for the last time. Yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2. Another 6 single crochets again, making sure that we are going into the right stitch. So this one right here. Now we're on to our last decrease of this round. In through the front, out through the middle. Again, in through the front, out through the middle, and then one more time, in through the front, out through the middle. Yarn over, pull through 3. Yarn over, pull through 2. To complete this round, we're going to single crochet 1 into these last 3 stitches. Join the round with a slip stitch. and then chain 1. Round 15 is very similar to round 14. The only difference is that we're going to change the amount of single crochets we do in between each decrease. So to start, we're going to start with 2 single crochets. Make sure we're going into that first stitch, the one with the slip stitch in it. So here's the first single crochet, and then the second one. Next, we're going to do that invisible 3-stitch decrease into the front loop of the first stitch, then the second one, and then the third one. So we should have a total of 4 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2. Next, we're going to do 4 single crochets. So we're going to repeat this pattern of 1 3-stitch decrease followed by 4 single crochets another 2 more times. So again, we're going to do a 3-stitch decrease. Remember, only into the front loops. Yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2. Follow that with 4 single crochets. Another 3-stitch decrease. Follow that with 4 single crochets. And now our last 3-stitch decrease. And then into these last 2 stitches, single crochet 1. Join the round with a slip stitch into that first stitch. And then chain 1. Now at this point, we can start stuffing our piece. So I'm going to grab some polyfill really quick. Now onto our last 2 rounds. We're going to start with round 16. First, we're going to start with a single crochet since we already did that chain 1. So single crochet into that first stitch. Remember, it's that teeny tiny stitch with our slip stitch in it. Pull up a loop, pull through 2. So now after our first single crochet, we're going to follow that with our 3-stitch decrease. So grab all the front loops of the next 3 stitches, yarn over, pull through the first 3, yarn over, and then pull through the 2 on our hook. Now we're going to follow that with 2 single crochets. Make sure you're crocheting into that next available stitch. So here's 1, and then 2. Repeat this pattern of our 3-stitch decrease followed by 2 single crochets another 2 more times. So we're going to do a 3-stitch decrease, another 2 single crochets, another 3-stitch decrease again, two more single crochets, and then our last 3-stitch decrease. And then to finish off this round, 1 single crochet into this final stitch. Slip stitch to join. And then chain 1. Now we're on to our final round, round 17, and round 17 is just 6 decreases. So unlike the previous decreases that we were doing, which included single crocheting 3 stitches together, this decrease is just single crocheting 2 stitches together. So it's very similar to the 3-stitch decrease. Instead, we're just going through 2 stitches instead. So we're going to grab the front loop of the first stitch. Remember, our first stitch is that small stitch with our slip stitch in it. You can also use a tapestry needle if it's easier to loosen up that stitch. So now we can insert our hook in the front and then kinda easily grab that front loop. We're gonna go into the next stitch, grab that stitch's front loop, and then we're gonna yarn over and then pull through those 2 stitches in front. Now we're gonna yarn over again and then pull through those 2 loops. And with that, we completed our first decrease. We're gonna do the same thing 5 more times. In through the front, out through the middle, in through the front, out through the middle again, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 again. Now we can do it a little quicker. In through the front, out through the middle, in through the front, out through the middle, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that was our 3rd decrease. So we're going to do that 3 more times. This is our 4th decrease. Now the 5th one. And then moving on to our final 6th decrease. After finishing that last decrease, we're going to do 1 more join. So we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. Pull tight, and we're not going to chain 1. Instead, we're going to fasten off. So pull out a big loop, cut a medium tail. I think this is good. I'm going to pull out the loop, grab your tapestry needle. To close off this hole that we have on the bottom here, we're going to weave in and out through the front loops only of this last round. So I'm going to go in the front loop of this first stitch here. And then I'm going to go back out the next stitch's front loop. So out like this. I'm going to repeat this all around the round. So in, front loop, out the next stitch's front loop. In, and then out. So once I've reached the end of the round, I'm going to pull the tail to close the hole. Pull it tight. Now I'm going to weave in the tail end. I'm going to go through the middle of this hole that I just closed and then out through the side somewhere, like this. And I'm going to stick my finger in this loop here to create a little gap. I'm going to pull the tail, and I'm going to pull the tail all the way through. And before I close this loop, I'm going to pull the side that is connected to the piece, pull it tight to make sure that the hole is secured closed, because when we stick our tapestry needle, it loosens the hole a bit. So I'm going to tighten it. And after it's tightened, I will pull the tail end. And that should secure the bottom. Now I'll just weave this tail in back and forth through the piece to hide it. I'm going to stick it back in the hole that my tail is coming out of. In, out somewhere random, stick it back in the same hole, and then again out somewhere random. After you do it a few times, you can just cut whatever leftover tail you have sticking out. And here we have completed the body of our cat. So now we're going to start crocheting on the ears on our cat. So we're going to start on the front loops of round 7. We're going to insert our stitch markers on one of the corners of the front face. So right here, I'm just going to stick it here. Then from the stitch marker, I'm going to count 10 stitches starting at the stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to mark this stitch right here. Now, clearly it's not centered, so I'm going to move it left a stitch. And now this looks more centered. So these 2 stitch markers here represent where the edges of our ears are going to go. So I'm going to start with this right ear first. To crochet on the ear, we're going to first remove this stitch marker and replace it with our crochet hook. So I'm going to insert my hook into that space where the stitch marker was. It's just going to be 1 loop on our hook. Then I'm going to grab our yarn and then I'm just going to place it on top of our hook. So I'm going to pull that yarn through that loop. And then to secure this yarn in place, I'm going to yarn over and then chain 1, and then I'm going to pull this tail. Now to actually start crocheting the ear, we're going to first set our hook into that same stitch and then put a single crochet into this stitch. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So that is our first single crochet. Into the next stitch, we're going to do 3 stitches. First, it's going to be a half double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now I want to do a double crochet into the same stitch, which is yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over again, and pull through the last 2. Now we're going to do 1 last half double crochet into this same stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Into our final stitch of this ear, we're going to go into the next stitch. And we're just going to put 1 single crochet into this stitch. And then here we have finished our ear. So I pulled out a loop and now I'm just going to cut a small tail. And then we can weave in this tail later. So here is our ear. Now I want to do the same thing with this side. So for the left ear, we're going to start 2 stitches away from this stitch marker. So here's our stitch marker. 1, 2, and then we're going to insert our hook into this stitch. Then we're going to do the same thing as we did with this left ear. Place our yarn on top of our hook and then pull it through the stitch on our hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop to attach it onto our ear. Next, into the same stitch with our chain 1, we're going to insert our hook and put a single crochet into it. Into our next stitch, start with a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now for a double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 again. Our last half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. Now our last stitch of this ear, when I remove our stitch marker, and we're just going to single crochet into that next stitch. And that completes our left ear. I'm going to pull out a loop, cut a small tail, and then we're just going to weave in all these loose ends. Now we are going to attach our tail on. First, we're going to want to flip our cat over upside down because that will help create the little curl of our tail. So once you got your cat upside down, we are going to find round 8 and 9. So this one is round 7, 8, and then 9. So in between 8 and 9 is where we're going to place our tail. Now we're going to insert our hook 1 stitch away from the slip stitch. So the slip stitch in our round is right here, this seam right here. So we're going to go 1 stitch away from it. So right here is where we're going to insert our hook. Insert our hook and come right out, right next to the slip stitch on the other side. So oops, that's 1 stitch too far. And go right here. So here, right here is the slip stitch, and then that is the stitch right next to it. So we have captured essentially 2 stitches. So once you have inserted your hook, we're going to place our yarn on top of it and bring it through the piece. And then we're going to secure it in place with a chain 1. And we're just going to tighten this tail. And here we have secured our yarn. Now to create the tail part, we're going to start with chaining 6. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Try to keep your stitches relatively loose or else it'll be a little difficult to crochet in the back. So once you have finished your last chain, we're going to start single crocheting, and we are going to single crochet into the back loops of our chain. So here, the front, it looks like a V, and in the back, there's a little back bump, and that is where we're going to start crocheting. So we're going to skip this first back bump here and crochet into the second one. So insert your hook into this back bump. I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and that completes our first single crochet. Now we have 4 more to do. So insert your hook into the next back bump, single crochet, into the next bump. This is our 3rd single crochet now. Into the next bump. That makes our 4th single crochet. And then the final bump on this chain. And that makes our last 5th single crochet. So once you're done with that, we're going to pull out a loop, cut a small tail, and then weave this in. So currently our tail looks like this, is hanging on one corner. So now we're going to secure this other corner onto the body. So we're going to insert our needle where this other tail is coming out of. So right here for me, I'm going to insert my tail here, poke it through a random spot on the cat, then pull my needle through. And that should secure the tail in place. Then we're just going to continue hiding this tail in this cat a few more times. Now we're going to give our cat tail a little bit of curl, so we're just going to fold it in and curl it up. So now it has a little bit of a curl to it. So now we can move on to the last part of this cat, which is sewing on the face. I will put a little diagram here to show where each part of the face goes, but if you would also like to follow along to me sewing it on, you can just continue watching. So here I have placed 2 tapestry needles on the face, which both represent the top of my eyes. So the top of the eyes goes between round 8 and round 9, and they are 4 stitches apart. So now I'm just going to remove one of my tapestry needles because I don't have any extras on hand. And we're going to start by sewing on this right eye. So I'm just going to insert my needle in a random spot on the side and come out where this blue needle is. So I'm going to remove that, and poke my needle through that hole. Now the eye is 1 stitch in height, so I'm just going to go down 1 stitch since this is the top of my eye. Let's go down 1, and I'm going to come back out where my thread is. So I'm just gonna insert it and then poke right back up. Now I'm just going to repeat this a few times to increase the thickness of this eye. Now once we have finished that right eye, I'm going to start moving on to the nose because I just want to sew across the face. So I'm just going to insert my needle back where this yarn is coming out of. And I'm going to come out 1 stitch away from the bottom of this eye. So here's the bottom, and then 1 stitch away is right here. So I'm going to insert my needle, come out there. Now my nose is 2 stitches in width, so I'm going to go 1, 2, insert my needle here, and then I'm going to come out in between those 2 stitches 1 round down, because that will create the T of this nose. So I'm going to come out into this stitch right here, so into here, and then out the middle. Now I'm going to insert my needle in between the stitches above, so right in the middle here. And I'm going to come out where my other eye is supposed to go. So the other eye is 1 stitch away from the nose, and the bottom would be right here. So I'm going to come out this stitch here, insert it, and then poke it through. Now since we're at the bottom of the eye, we're going to go 1 stitch up, insert it in the top, and then come back out the bottom. Now we're going to repeat this a few times to thicken up the eye. Now we can start sewing on the whiskers, and it is 1 stitch away from the bottom of the eye. So here we are at the bottom, 1 stitch away would be right here. So I'm going to insert my needle back into where my thread is coming out of and come up 1 stitch away. So the whiskers are 2 stitches in width, so our needle is going to go into this spot. But if you are trying to sew the cat with the whiskers that are slightly slanted, go up 1 round and then insert your needle there. But for those of you doing the simple straight line, you just go right across to this stitch right here. So you're either inserting your needle 2 stitches away or 2 stitches away and 1 stitch up. I'm just going to do the simple whisker, and I'm just going to go 2 stitches away, insert it here, and then to start the bottom whisker, I'm going to poke my needle out 1 row down. For those of you doing the slanted whisker, you're going to go 2 rows down and poke your needle out. Now to complete this bottom whisker, we're going to go 2 stitches across, 1, 2, and insert our needle. Since I have a lot of leftover thread left, I'm going to also go all the way across to do the 2 whiskers here. So my whisker will be 1 away from the eye, and since I want to go across to the bottom one, I'm going to go 1 down. This is where my needle should come out of. Insert my needle, go all the way across, and then come out. Now to complete this bottom whisker, go across 2 stitches, and then we're going to come out 1 row above. Again, go across 2 stitches, and then we're just going to come out where this other thread is coming out of. So go here, and then poke through the side. And now we have finally completed the face. So you can just knot these 2 threads together. Now all that's left to do is weave in these ends. For some of you, you are done. This is all you need to do. But for those of you who want to add the sesame seeds, we will need to grab the brown embroidery thread. And there's really no technique to this. The only thing I would like for you guys to keep in mind is that all of these sesame seeds are 1 stitch in height or width. So we want to make sure to keep that consistent. Other than that, you just randomly place them around and that should be good. So I'll just show a little bit. So I'm just going to insert it in the bottom, come out a random spot near the front, and I'll just go across 1 stitch, and then I'll just come up somewhere random on top. And then I guess I will go diagonal 1 stitch, come out somewhere random. I'll go diagonal this way. Maybe diagonal again. Up 1 stitch. So as you can see, it's really just random. Place them however you want, go whatever direction you want, and eventually it will start looking like sesame seeds. So I'm only going to do a few pieces here, but essentially it's very random. You can place them wherever you want, go whichever direction you want, and you just want to do that all the way around the cat. And with that, we have finally completed our sushi cat. Congratulations, and thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, post them down in the comments below and I will try my best to answer them in a timely manner. And also, again, as a reminder, I have written a pattern and posted it as a pinned comment in the comments below. So in the future, if you would like to reference that, feel free to do so. And that's pretty much it. So until next time, bye!